You could be in simple work orders and in simple calendaring and then filtered on by a certain labor provider if you wanted to. I have no idea who these people are in here, so I'll just leave it at that. So this calendaring feature, and by the way, there's different views on it. That's weekly. We have a daily view. We have a monthly view. We have a daily list, which there are none, and then we have a weekly list. And if I kind of schedule through these things, let me clear my filter so we can see a few other things. So the list pops up, looks like kind of we would expect it to look in a calendar, and once again, I can click on anything. This is kind of a cool view for your folks that are out in the field doing work, where they can now actually set their day. So you go out, hey, I have all these work orders assigned to me. There are no specific time slots in them. There may be no specific time slots. They can come in and drag them into a time slot and kind of plan their day, what their day is going to look like. And that's what calendaring looks like. Scheduling takes us to a whole different level. And again, calendaring, free, part of the application, going to end up going everywhere over time. Scheduling is a premium feature, again, starting just on work orders, but ultimately will be brought out to other things. I will caution myself on what we're going to apply scheduling to, only because we don't want to set expectations and then have to have Bob up till 3 in the morning making it happen. Scheduling, whole different feature. In scheduling, we can see all of our labor providers. If I go into a different view, and let me go find a place where we actually have some work orders. This is a little bit of a different view where I can turn on and off as many labor providers as I want and see their schedules. This is kind of a tough view, but we have another cool view in here, which is the 7-day rows, which actually makes it easier to see all of your labor providers and what's assigned to them. If a work order is unassigned, it would end up here. Let's go drag this up here for now. It ends up here so that I can take it down and then assign it to anybody I want to. We've added some intelligence to this part of the application. If you have clients that are just doing fundamental stuff, they're not creating shops and they're not assigning labor to specific locations, dragging and dropping will just plain old work, no hesitation, no prompts, no anything. However, if you now want to assign your labor to specific locations and assign your labor to specific trades, when you take and drop a work order onto them, we're evaluating. Is this person authorized to do work at that location? Is this person assigned to this specific trade? If they are, just drop it on here and assign away. If not, just let the user know what they're doing. Hey, I've just taken this work order, and by the way, this person is not assigned to that location and not assigned to that shop. Do you want to do this anyway? Yes, I do, and it just lets me do it. Once again, I can set durations on these things and make that happen and drag and drop them to anywhere I want to. And then we have some filtering, and we're going to take a look at the filtering and work it. So that's our scheduling piece, and that's going to be available in February as well. For February, we have bolstered materials management quite a bit. We have some limits on how far we're going to go, although that's going to be kind of difficult to tell once you see how far we've actually gone. So with materials management, we've always had a materials inventory where I can have all of these different parts. I can assign them to work orders. I can put the count and the costs associated with them. We have now added scanning to materials. So if I go in and go ahead and scan a material, and we now support, by the way, QR codes as well as typical barcodes. QR code reading works best. Just outright, it works the best. You saw how quick it was. Barcodes take a little more time. If I scan something, it's going to open up the record if it finds it, so that I can then do what I need to do. Where we've really kind of stepped up the game a little bit is in locations. So we've had this concept of locations, the ability to put materials in a location, storage rooms, so that when a service provider or labor provider is out in the field and they need to go find something, we can tell them where things are. Well, we've gone to much higher steps here. We've added 2 tabs to the locations. One is materials. So not only are we just listing the materials there, but once again, we'll do a scan. And oh, I have to flip the camera the other way. So this material is in the room, and it opens up the dialog. We now have the ability to assign this to a preferred vendor. We can now add how many do we have on hand in that particular location. What's the maximum number that we ever want to have on hand in that location, and what's a reorder level, so that we're actually starting to manage these. If a material is assigned to a work order that has yet to be closed, we will pull it out of the on-hand count and give you a reserved count. So, hey, 5 of these things have been reserved. There's actually 1 of them available for you to work with, and you have your reorder levels to work with. I'm actually going to do this right now. Let's go in and filter for that material.
Hey Bob, can I ask a question?
Sure.
It may be a stupid question, but what's the difference between location and space? Why do you need the 2 different?
There is no difference. So these are material locations. So these are defining some place within, because that material location could be a warehouse, could be just a building. It could be a room in a building. That's the only difference between these 2. This is literally just saying, hey, this room is something special. This is where I keep all my cool stuff, and what do I have in there?
So it's just specific for material.
Right. So I'm actually going to delete this material from here and scan again. And you can see here it says, hey, that material is not in this location. Would you like to add it? So I have that material in my inventory, but I don't have it associated with this location. If I click yes, it associates it with that location and opens up the dialog. That's kind of materials, the short version of materials. So when we looked at these locations, these storage rooms, for lack of a better term, there may be not just materials in there, they may be assets. We do a move, we're going to, take out 50 cubes in this particular space. When we do that, we find that we have 3 additional printers that we're not using right now. We want to take those assets and put them in this storage room so that later on we can disperse them somewhere else. Same essential concept here. I have the ability to now take those assets, put them in the space, which we've always had that ability. But here we can now do scanning and see where these things are and how many are. There are, when we do some scanning on these things, let's do this again. I'm going to remove these 2 here. Actually, I think it's this one. Let me just move this one. So just think of yourself doing a move, and this is a catch basin, which is probably not a good example, but well. So I've just done a move, and I am now bringing some materials in, some assets back. I take my phone and I go scan this thing, this asset that I'm bringing back. And I'm kind of in an awkward position here. There we go. And it says, hey, this asset's not at this location. In other words, it was previously out on the floor. I'm bringing it into this room. Do you actually want to add it here? Yes, I do. And once again, so it brings it into that location, and then it opens up the dialog. You can do whatever you want to do with the dialog as well. So that's kind of the long and short of what we've added here. And I'll show you one additional thing related to materials. We do not plan at this point in time to become a procurement application. However, we have added a KPI to the dashboard. And let me just see where the heck I put it. so that we can give you a list of materials that need to be ordered. So you saw all that reorder level, we're above that level, we're below that level. On my dashboard, I can see a list of materials. So, hey, at storage room A, I have 13 of these fluorescent bulbs. We need to order 13 of these fluorescent bulbs. Here's the name, the manufacturer, the model number, the vendor, the vendor's address, and I will be changing this attribute to be vendor ID in here so that you can actually now go out and print this out, export it out, do whatever you want to do. We're not going to do the procurement, but at least we're going to get you to the point that you're always going to know what needs to be ordered. So let's take a look at some other things that we've added to the platform. So under Platform Admin, we have a new feature called Administrative Grids. Some of these things you're all going to see. There's actually 2 of them were built for a specific client. This is a placeholder where we can stuff things into the core application as well as putting things in that are specific to a client. This is a new addition that's actually going to be available to everyone, and that's the ability to manage active sessions. So if I go to this administrative grid, I'm now going to see that there's 2 people signed in, and maybe we're getting some prompts that, we know we have enough licenses to manage everybody, but somebody has been open on 2 places or has been open for a long time. These days, hours, and minutes will tell you the last time they actually did something in the system. So if I actually refresh this, we should start to, well, we're not going to see it right now because, again, this gets goofy because I'm doing this all on one computer for 2 people. But you do have the ability to start logging people out of this thing. Of course, I'm logged in on both. There you go. So that's an administrative grid. Download history. So we do have some folks that are using Evolve and our plan room feature as well as documents and pictures to make things available to kind of the world. They configure it so that they can see just simple collections and give them permissions to downloading. So we now have a complete download history. Anytime you download anything from the system, it will tell you where it was downloaded from, plan room, documents, pictures, whatever it may be, the date that it was downloaded, the user that did it, and then some information about the file that was actually downloaded. Those 2 things are going to be available to the world. This placeholder for administrative grids is a place where we're going to do a bunch of really cool things in the future. It's kind of, hey, I wish I had this grid to manage whatever. This is where it's going to land. Let's see what else we have. So for those of you that haven't seen OnPoint, OnPoint is a very significant shift. OnPoint is a very different way of looking at your, embedded in Evolve, primarily looking at your infrastructure, your asset management pieces. It works slightly differently than Evolve in the drawing viewer in that it works with pure images. So without hurting anybody's feelings, our internal slogan for this is, if you have a phone, a finger, and an IQ greater than a houseplant, you actually should be able to run this application and run it successfully. So let's go down into a particular location, and I'll go to this machine shop floor and open up an image. And this is kind of, old school where I take an image and I'm able to put hotspots on it, and if I hover over it, I can see what that hotspot is. But this thing goes a little beyond just clicking on a hotspot and getting some information about it, and certainly I can open up a dialogue, and I can show you, I'll show you a little later, this on the phone as well. But this can tie into, actually embedded in Evolve, it does tie into. If I happen to have work orders that need to be done in that location, I don't have to question where those things are. I can just turn them on, and I'm actually then going to see precisely where the work that I need to do is there. And sometimes that work, if I can find the right one, is not always in front of me. Those are always there, so it's actually going to be the same. Oh, no, it's not. Sometimes that work is not always in front of me. This supports flat images, so I can just take a picture with my phone. If I happen to go out and buy a $100 360 phone, 360 image camera, or want to be painstaking with my phone and do their panoramic images, it supports it. We can jump from one location to another with this application. So I can jump from one panoramic image to another. And the beauty of this thing is I literally can take an image and then just tap to start locating things. And it's more than just assets that are in there. So one of the key things that we've built this application for is, hey, I have a new facility, I'm bringing a new application online. Boy, it would really be nice to have an inventory of all of our assets, but that's so time consuming. We don't have drawings that show all the locations of everything. How do I intelligently start to locate all of these assets and materials within my organization? Well, if we go to the edit section here, I can take a look at all of the assets that may already be in the database. I've done this demo a few times, so there's a lot of crap here. I can start to place things that we already have in here as simple as this, just pointing and clicking. And I can change the icons that show up in here. So if I want to see a different icon for, I just pulled the fire extinguisher, maybe I want something that looks like a fire extinguisher. So let's do that, and we'll do this again. I'm going to click on this and pop it over here. So it shows up as a fire extinguisher. I can resize those icons, by the way, proportionally just by a slider down here. But one of the cooler features with it is we've added what we call templates to the entire platform. And we'll step back in a moment and take a look at what goes into the construction of a template. But let's pretend I'm out in the field. We have no information or limited information in our database. And I get to a location and identify, and I'm actually going to come out of this and see if I can find a cleaner version of this, which I may or may not. It's actually even dirtier, but same difference. So I can use templates to actually come in here. We'll turn this way so it doesn't look so cluttered. I can actually go in and create new assets, new attributes just from a template. So I'm going to come in here, I'm in the edit mode, and I want to create new assets from a template. I can pick what that template is. In this case, I'll pick the fire extinguishers. And until I tell it to stop, every time I tap my finger on here, it's going to place an icon, but it's going to do more than just place an icon. I've come out of edit mode now. I'm going to click on this thing. It's built an entire record with all of the classifications, all of the documentation, and if I happen to have any maintenance programs associated, we're doing our monthly inspection, we're doing our annual recharging, all of that stuff gets associated with that record, automatically put in the database. So I can literally populate in a very consistent manner my asset inventory by simply going out into the field, taking a picture of something, pick a template, and tap, 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 tap on the picture and start to populate the database and very clearly in a high fidelity fashion identify and locate where those things happen to be within my system. We go one step further with this, so I'm going to take you to one more place and then I'm going to shut up. I think this is the right one. You have the ability, since we have floor plans inside of Evolve, I can, with a simple click, so I'm going to come down here and do add. I can pick a location where I want to add an image. Location meaning where in my hierarchy, my location hierarchy, does this thing reside. And then I can actually pick one of the internal drawings and it'll turn it into an image for me and stick it in here. And that's how this particular image was created. And on this image, I actually identified all of the spaces that are in here. So let me go over to the attributes section. I identified all of the spaces, so when I click on this, I'm going to see all of the evolved information about the spaces. But I also went out and then decided I'm going to place all the sprinkler shutoffs that are on this floor here. And out in the parking lot, I have the main sprinkler shutoff that feeds the building. And With the application now, what we're delivering in February is what we used to have on FM desktop, services and dependents. The ability to go into a room and say, show me where the main breaker is for the light, show me where the water shutoff is that feeds the bathroom. All of that stuff, what services this room, and then dependents clicking on a valve and saying, when I shut this valve, what's going to be affected by it. That's all going to be available in the February release. What gets really cool is with OnPoint, I can go out and pick a valve, and this is how difficult it is to identify dependents. Tap, 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 and I know this is monotonous, but I'm tapping on that. I click finish. I've identified all of the spaces that depend on that particular sprinkler valve, and it gets even better than that. So I'll come out of edit mode, I'll click on that sprinkler valve, and if I go over to the dependent section, it's going to list them all, but it's also going to do something else. I can automatically create a one-line drawing of those dependencies. Here's that section valve to shut it off. Here's all the rooms that depend upon it. If I happen to go upline and let me click on the sprinkler shutoff, the first one inside the building, and do exactly the same thing, I get a one-line drawing of the entire system and all the relationships associated with them. And that was all created by simply taking a picture or taking a floor plan and tapping on it. And now I have a complete one-line schematic of the infrastructure of my system available to me. Just imagine this is a gymnasium and not a shop floor. Okay, so I do my K through 12, I do my higher education. Let me turn off my work order icons because they're kind of irrelevant right now. I have an incident in this gymnasium, and the first responders can have access to this thing. So if they have a 360 image before they ever arrive on scene, they know where the doors are, the in and out into this place. They can take a look at this thing on the way to the scene and get an understanding of the environment they're about to jump into. And by the way, if that environment happens to have cameras in it, they can actually go and get the live feed from those cameras and gain access to it as well. And templates is a very cool feature. Let's assume for a minute that either you're starting from scratch or maybe you want to do a reprogramming, and healthcare is a perfect example, Mike. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to build a new surgical suite. And that surgical suite is going to have 5 operating rooms. It's going to have 25 recovery stations. It's going to have 6 scrub rooms, whatever it may be. With templates, I can go in, well, let's start with the space template first. With templates, I can go in and identify all of the core attribution. What's the template name? Do I want to prefix every record that gets created from this? Hey, when it comes to OnPoint or Drawing Composer, do we want to have a default icon? We can. We can add classifications, basic attribution, detailed information, all of your FECM information. We can add pictures to this thing. We can associate contacts. Assets, we're actually associating asset templates. Hey, I'm going to build a surgical suite. It has, every time I create a new surgical room, it has these 10 pieces of equipment in it. And by the way, there's always 2 pendant lights and 2 fire extinguishers in every single surgical room we create. So I've added those in here. Once again, documents, and then when we create this thing, we can say, I want to assign this to particular maintenance management schedules. So this is just creating a space template. The same concept applies to assets, but the cool thing about spaces is I can create asset templates, apply them to spaces with a count, and now when I make a space, I'm building the space record, I'm building the assets, and I'm associating all of them, documents, maintenance management programs, pictures, everything, with a single click. Which is some pretty cool stuff. So we have the template part of it. Let's go into spaces, for example. I now have the ability to create from a template. Oh, let's go to the space piece. What I can tell you, I can say how many of these I want to build, what's the location of these things, and this is the end result. This is a record with all of the attribution that we had previously in the template built into it, all of the pictures associated with it, all of the assets created for it and associated with it. Any documents that were created there get associated with it, and it was added to all the maintenance schedules. In this particular case, there happened to not be any. Again, just an amazingly quick way to start to populate a database to go from 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 in as short a time as humanly possible. That's kind of really where we're focusing an awful lot of effort right now.